Most people think they have a decent sense of scale. You know how far it is from your home to the nearest store. You know how long it takes to cross a city, to fly across a country, to circle the Earth. These distances feel intuitive. They fit inside your mind. You can imagine them without strain. Even space, at first, seems manageable. The moon is far, but not impossibly far. You've seen it your entire life, hanging quietly above rooftops and trees. When you learn that it's about 384,000 kilometers away, the number feels large, but still friendly. After all, humans have been there. We've left footprints. We've brought pieces of it back. The sun is bigger, much bigger, 150 million kilometers away. That number sounds absurd, but the sun still feels familiar. It warms your skin. It rises and sets every day. You don't feel intimidated by it. It's just part of the sky. Then come the planets: Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Their distances stretch farther. Their sizes grow stranger. But your mind adapts. Diagrams help. Orbits make sense. The solar system becomes a tidy map, with the sun at the center and everything else moving politely around it. At this stage, the universe still feels like something you could understand, and that is where the trouble begins. Because the real size of the universe does not reveal itself all at once. It doesn't confront you with a single overwhelming number. Instead, it lures you forward, step by step, allowing your intuition to keep up just long enough to betray you later. Beyond the outer planets lies something most people never truly visualize: emptiness. Between the Sun and Neptune, there are billions of kilometers, yet the space still feels crowded with objects, labels, and lines. But once you pass the Kuiper Belt, once Pluto becomes a footnote instead of a destination, the solar system doesn't end so much as it dissolves. The nearest star is not waiting just beyond the edge. It is 4 light years away. A light year is not a unit your brain evolved to handle. It isn't distance in the everyday sense. It is time disguised as space. It is how far light travels in 1 year, moving faster than anything else in the universe, about 300,000 kilometers every second, 4 of those years. Every second, non-stop. If you shrink the Earth down to the size of a grain of sand, the sun becomes a small marble several meters away. On that same scale, the nearest star would be hundreds of kilometers distant. Everything between would be nothing. No planets, no asteroids, no comforting reference points. Just darkness. Already, the universe is starting to feel less friendly. Still, many people stop here. They imagine stars scattered across a cosmic neighborhood, each one separated by vast but finite gaps. They picture the Milky Way as a spinning disk of stars, perhaps 100,000 light years across, and feel satisfied. Large, yes, but comprehensible. The problem is that this is only the first real layer. Our galaxy contains hundreds of billions of stars. That number alone should be alarming. Even if you counted 1 star every second, it would take thousands of years just to name them all. And yet, the Milky Way is not remarkable. It is not special. It is not unusually large or unusually dense. It is average. When astronomers began mapping the skies in detail, they realized that galaxies are not evenly sprinkled through space. They gather, they clump, they form groups, clusters, and sprawling structures that stretch across hundreds of millions of light years. The Milky Way belongs to a small collection called the Local Group. which contains dozens of galaxies bound together by gravity. Even this modest gathering spans millions of light years. Beyond that lies the Virgo cluster, thousands of galaxies, each one a city of stars, each one separated from its neighbors by gulfs so wide that light takes millions of years to cross them. At this point, something subtle happens inside the mind. Numbers lose their meaning. 1,000,000 kilometers and 1 billion kilometers feel emotionally identical. 1,000,000 years and 1 billion years blur together. Your brain quietly gives up on true comprehension and replaces it with labels: very big, very far, very old. This mental shortcut is the only reason you can continue listening, but the universe does not respect your shortcuts. As telescopes improved, astronomers discovered that galaxy clusters themselves are not randomly placed. They trace enormous filaments, forming a cosmic web. Between these filaments are voids, regions of space so empty that entire galaxies are rare. Some of these voids are hundreds of millions of light years across. You could place thousands of Milky Ways inside one and still have room to spare. At this scale, the universe stops resembling anything familiar. There is no analogy that truly works. No comparison to cities, oceans, or grains of sand can capture what is happening here. Every metaphor collapses under the weight of the reality it tries to describe. And yet, even now, we are still inside something larger. All the galaxies you have ever seen in images, spirals, ellipticals, glowing smears of ancient light, belong to a tiny region called the observable universe. This is the portion of the cosmos from which light has had time to reach us since the beginning of cosmic expansion. Its radius is about 46 billion light years. That number is already unsettling. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old, and yet we can see objects more than 3 times that distance away. Space itself has been stretching while light traveled through it, inflating the visible cosmos beyond what intuition expects. But here is the part that most explanations soften or quietly avoid. The observable universe is not the entire universe. It is not even close. It is simply the part we can see, beyond that horizon. Space does not stop. There is no edge, no wall, no curtain waiting to be pulled back. The laws of physics do not suggest a boundary. They suggest continuation. And continuation, at this scale, is terrifying. Because if the part of the universe we can see contains hundreds of billions of galaxies, then the part we cannot see may contain vastly more, perhaps infinitely more. Entire regions forever cut off from us, moving away faster than light can bridge the gap. Places where our existence has no influence, no record, no meaning. As you begin to sense this, a quiet unease settles in. Not fear exactly, not panic. Something colder, the realization that the universe is not just big, but indifferent to being understood. And this is only the beginning. If the universe were merely large, the mind could eventually come to terms with it. Size alone is not the problem. After all, we deal with large things every day by breaking them into pieces. We draw maps. We create scales. We learn to think in layers. With enough time, even the Milky Way can feel familiar. A disk, a bulge, a halo, all rotating in a slow cosmic dance. But the universe is not content with being mapped. The deeper issue is that the universe refuses to stay still long enough for intuition to settle. Space itself is changing, expanding, stretching in every direction at once, without a center, without an edge, and without asking permission from the minds trying to describe it. This is where size stops behaving like size. When astronomers first realized the universe was expanding, it sounded almost reasonable. Galaxies are moving away from each other. Fine. Everything drifts apart over time. That's how explosions work. That's how intuition wants it to work. But the universe is not an explosion. There is no central point where everything began. No cosmic shrapnel flying outward into pre-existing emptiness. Instead, space itself is growing. Every region, everywhere, all at once. Imagine dots drawn on the surface of a balloon. As the balloon inflates, every dot moves away from every other dot. None of them is the center. None of them is privileged. From any dot's perspective, everything else is receding. This analogy helps until it doesn't, because the balloon exists in a higher dimensional space. Our universe does not come with an obvious outside. There is no larger room into which it expands. The expansion is intrinsic. Space stretches because that is what space does, at small scales. This expansion is irrelevant. Gravity holds planets together. Galaxies remain bound. Even galaxy clusters resist the pull for now, but at large enough scales, expansion dominates. And once you accept that, the meaning of distance begins to unravel. When we say a galaxy is 10 billion light-years away, we are not saying what you think we're saying. The light we see today left that galaxy billions of years ago, when the universe was smaller. Since then, space has stretched, increasing the distance between us and the source, while the light was already on its way. The galaxy is much farther away now than when the light began its journey. How much farther? So far that it is moving away from us faster than light. This is not a violation of relativity. Nothing is locally breaking the speed limit of the universe. Instead, the fabric of space between us and that galaxy is expanding so rapidly that the separation grows faster than light can close it. This is where intuition quietly collapses. There are galaxies we can see that we can never reach, no matter how long we wait, no matter how advanced our technology becomes. Even if we traveled at nearly the speed of light, the expansion would carry them away faster than we could pursue. They exist in our sky, but not in our future. Worse still, there are galaxies whose light will never reach us, not now, not ever. They are already beyond the cosmic event horizon, the boundary separating what is observable in principle from what is forever hidden. The universe, it turns out, is not only large, it is actively removing itself from us. This horizon is not something you could see or mark on a map. It is a consequence of time, expansion, and the finite speed of light. And it means that the observable universe is not growing forever. There will come a time when it begins to shrink. As expansion accelerates, distant galaxies will fade. Their light will stretch into wavelengths so long they can no longer be detected. Eventually, even the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang, will disappear from view. Future observers, if any exist, will see a quiet, empty universe with a single island, galaxy, and little evidence that anything else ever existed. This is not a poetic exaggeration. It is the logical outcome of the universe's size, combined with its expansion. And this brings us to a disturbing realization. When we talk about the size of the universe, we are already speaking in the past tense. The universe we describe no longer exists in the way we see it. We are surrounded by fossils of light, snapshots of objects that may have merged, burned out, or drifted far beyond contact. The further away you look, the further back in time you see. At the largest scales, where and when become the same question. Now consider what lies beyond the observable universe. Not darkness, not emptiness, but more universe. Regions with their own galaxies, their own stars, their own histories forever disconnected from ours by the relentless stretching of space. If the universe is infinite, then this is only one patch in an endless expanse. If it is finite but unbounded, it may wrap around in ways geometry struggles to describe. Either way, the implication is the same. What we can see is not representative. It is a small sample drawn from something incomprehensibly larger. And that means the true size of the universe is not just worse than you think. It is fundamentally incompatible with the way human minds evolved to understand reality. We evolved to judge distances across savannas, to track moving prey, to remember paths between shelters, not to reason about horizons defined by the expansion of space-time itself. Yet here we are, trying anyway. At some point, asking how big the universe is becomes the wrong question. Not because the question is foolish, but because the universe does not behave in a way that allows a simple answer. The idea of a single, total size assumes something fixed, something that can be measured from one end to another. It assumes boundaries, even if they are unimaginably far away. The universe offers none of these comforts. When cosmologists talk about the universe as a whole, they are forced to use the language of geometry rather than distance. Curvature replaces length. Topology replaces edges. Instead of asking how far the universe extends, they ask how space itself is shaped. And the answers are deeply unsettling. One possibility is that the universe is infinite, not just very large, but literally without end. In this case, no matter how far you travel, no matter how long you move in a straight line, you never reach a boundary. There is always more space ahead of you, always more galaxies, always more regions causally disconnected from your own. Infinity is not a large number. It is a different category of thing entirely. Human intuition treats infinity like exaggeration. So big, it might as well be endless. But mathematical infinity is precise and unforgiving. It means there is no total volume to add up, no final count of galaxies, no complete inventory of anything. If the universe is infinite, then every physically possible arrangement of matter occurs somewhere, not once, but infinitely many times. There are regions with galaxies nearly identical to ours. Regions where history unfolded almost the same way until a tiny fluctuation sent events down a different path. There may even be regions where a planet exists that is nearly indistinguishable from Earth, where someone is reading these words, or almost these words, under a slightly different sky. This idea is not science fiction. It is a logical consequence of infinity, combined with finite physical laws. And that alone should give you pause. But infinity is not the only option. The universe could also be finite yet unbounded. This sounds contradictory, but it is not. Just as the surface of the Earth is finite in area but has no edge, space itself could loop back on itself in higher dimensions, travel far enough in one direction, and you might eventually return to your starting point. In such a universe, there is a total volume, a true size, but it is wrapped in a geometry so subtle that detecting it would require observations far beyond our current reach. If this is the case, the universe may still be vastly larger than the observable portion, perhaps thousands or millions of times larger. The part we can see would be a tiny patch on a cosmic surface whose curvature is too gentle to notice locally. Standing inside it, everything would look flat, normal, endless. Illusions are good at that. What makes this worse is that current observations cannot decisively rule out either scenario. Measurements of cosmic curvature suggest the universe is very close to flat, but very close is not the same as exact. A curvature so small it escapes detection could still imply a universe of enormous but finite size, or none at all. This uncertainty is not a temporary gap in knowledge that will soon be filled. It may be fundamental. The observable universe places hard limits on what we can measure. Beyond a certain scale, information is simply unavailable. No experiment, no telescope, no clever trick can retrieve it. The universe may be hiding its true extent permanently, and that forces an uncomfortable realization. The universe does not owe us closure. There may never be a moment when a final answer arrives. No announcement declaring the universe infinite or finite, wrapped or open. We may spend eternity refining measurements that asymptotically approach certainty without ever reaching it. In everyday life, uncertainty is a nuisance. In cosmology, it is existential, because size, at this level, is tied to meaning. If the universe is infinite, then our entire observable cosmos, every galaxy, every star, every story ever told, is a statistical speck. Not just small, but negligible. The word rare loses significance. The word unique dissolves entirely. If the universe is finite, but unimaginably vast, the effect is not much better. Our cosmic neighborhood would still be an isolated bubble in a sea so large that light itself cannot traverse it in the lifetime of the universe. Either way, the comforting idea that everything that exists is somehow connected quietly breaks down. Most of existence would be forever out of reach. And yet, despite this, the human mind keeps searching for edges, for totals, for final numbers. We draw spheres around the observable universe and label them as if they represent something whole. They do not. They are horizons. Limits imposed not by space itself, but by time and physics. The true universe extends beyond them, indifferent to whether it is seen or known. As this sinks in, something subtle changes in the way scale feels. The problem is no longer that the universe is too big to imagine, it is that imagination itself becomes irrelevant. There is no mental picture that can capture infinity or even extreme finiteness without edges. The universe stops being a place and becomes a condition, a framework in which all places exist. Once the universe becomes large enough, probability stops behaving the way you expect in everyday life. Probability feels intuitive: coins, land, heads or tails. Dice roll numbers from 1 to 6. Rare events stay rare because there are not enough opportunities for them to happen very often. The world feels stable because extremes are kept in check by limited scale. The universe does not share this limitation. When space stretches far enough, when it contains not just billions of galaxies, but potentially infinite regions, probability begins to turn against common sense. Events that are astronomically unlikely in one place become unavoidable somewhere else. Not because the laws of physics change, but because there is simply more room for things to happen. Imagine shuffling a deck of cards. The chance of getting any specific order is vanishingly small. So small that you will almost certainly never see the same shuffle twice in your lifetime. Yet every time you shuffle, you produce one of those improbable arrangements. Improbable does not mean impossible. It only means infrequent. Now imagine shuffling an infinite number of decks forever. Every possible order would not just occur, it would occur endlessly. This is the logic that governs a universe of extreme size. If the universe is infinite, or even just large enough, then every allowed configuration of matter appears somewhere, not once, but over and over again. Entire galaxies arranged in near-identical patterns. Planets with familiar continents, civilizations that rise, fall, and ask the same questions under different stars. This idea is deeply unsettling, not because it is mystical, but because it is mundane. It follows directly from statistics applied to vast space. There is nothing special required. No parallel dimensions, no branching timelines, just scale. Even if the universe is finite, the numbers involved are so enormous that repetition becomes almost unavoidable. With hundreds of billions of galaxies, each containing hundreds of billions of stars, and countless planets around them, the combinatorial possibilities explode beyond intuitive limits. The universe has more trials than you have intuitions, and this has consequences. In a universe this large, rarity loses its emotional weight. The fact that something is unlikely does not protect you from its existence. Somewhere, black holes will form in bizarre ways. Somewhere, stars will ignite in unusual patterns. Somewhere, life will arise under conditions that feel impossibly hostile. Somewhere, almost anything that can happen will happen. This is not comforting. It means that the universe is not tuned for elegance or narrative satisfaction. It does not privilege neat outcomes or meaningful coincidences. It produces everything and lets significance be assigned afterward by observers who happen to care. The unsettling part is realizing what this does to our sense of importance. If the universe is large enough, then the fact that you exist here, now, under these conditions, says very little about the universe as a whole. It says something about local circumstances, not cosmic intent. This is a difficult idea to sit with. Humans are storytellers. We instinctively look for reasons, for explanations that connect outcomes to purpose. But the universe, at extreme scales, is governed by statistics, not stories. And statistics are indifferent. The size of the universe amplifies this indifference. It ensures that meaning is not built in, but emergent, constructed by minds within tiny pockets of space that briefly resist entropy. There is another consequence of vastness that is even harder to accept. In an infinite universe, not only do near-identical regions exist, but exact duplicates must exist as well. Given finite physical laws and infinite space, there are only so many ways particles can be arranged in a finite region. Eventually, those arrangements repeat. Somewhere out there is a region of space that is, down to the quantum level, indistinguishable from our own observable universe, at least up to this moment. A perfect copy, drifting far beyond any possible contact. The existence of such regions does not diminish your experiences, but it does challenge the notion that they are unique in a cosmic sense. Uniqueness, it turns out, is a local property. This realization often triggers resistance. Surely there must be some limit, some boundary that prevents such absurd repetition. Surely infinity is just a mathematical abstraction, not a physical reality. Perhaps. But even if the universe is finite, it may be large enough to make the distinction academic. When numbers climb beyond 10 to the power of 100 or 10 to the power of 1000, the difference between finite and infinite becomes emotionally meaningless. The universe feels endless either way. And in that endlessness, the familiar human categories, rare, special, chosen, begin to erode. This does not mean that life is meaningless. It means meaning is not guaranteed by scale. Meaning must be made locally, temporarily, against a backdrop that does not notice. Space alone is overwhelming. Time makes it worse. When people try to grasp the size of the universe, they usually picture distance, light years, galaxies, horizons. Time feels secondary, almost like a background setting. The universe is old, yes, but age seems easier to accept than scale. After all, we understand aging. We watch things change. We measure years. But cosmic time does not behave like human time. It stretches, deepens, and eventually breaks intuition in the same way space does, only more quietly. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. That number is often repeated because it sounds authoritative, precise, complete, but the number hides more than it reveals. 13 billion years is not just a long time. It is a duration so vast that cause and effect themselves begin to blur. To put it gently, nothing you have ever experienced prepares you for it. If the entire history of the universe were compressed into a single calendar year, all of human civilization would appear in the last few seconds before midnight on December 31st. Written language, agriculture, cities, science, everything you recognize as history would be thinner than a blink. Most of the universe's story happened without stars, without planets, without life. For hundreds of millions of years after the Big Bang, there was only darkness. No light sources, no galaxies, just expanding space, cooling into silence. And that was only the beginning. Stars ignited, lived, and died long before the sun existed. Entire generations of galaxies formed and merged before Earth was even possible. When we look deep into space, we are not just seeing far away, we are seeing epochs that ended billions of years ago. The night sky is a graveyard of ancient light. This alone would be humbling. But the true discomfort comes when time is combined with extreme size. If the universe is infinite in space, and if it continues to exist indefinitely into the future, then time becomes a canvas even larger than space. Every process that is allowed by physics, no matter how unlikely, eventually happens. Not just once, but endlessly. This includes events that seem absurd on human scales. Given enough time, particles randomly fluctuate into complex structures. Given enough time, stars reignite from unlikely collisions. Given enough time, order briefly emerges from chaos. These are not philosophical speculations. They follow from statistical mechanics applied over vast durations. In an eternal universe, even the most improbable configurations are guaranteed, not because the universe favors them, but because it has nothing but time. This leads to a deeply uncomfortable idea known among cosmologists as the heat-death problem. As the universe expands, energy spreads out, stars burn out, black holes evaporate. Eventually, the universe approaches a state of maximum entropy, a thin, cold equilibrium where nothing meaningful happens anymore. No gradients, no work, no complexity, just emptiness. But even here, time refuses to end the story cleanly. In a universe that lasts forever, random fluctuations can still occur, even in near equilibrium. Over unimaginable spans of time, particles can momentarily arrange themselves into structured forms, brief islands of order in an otherwise dead cosmos. This gives rise to a disturbing thought experiment. Given infinite time, it is statistically more likely for a single, self-aware brain to spontaneously form out of chaos than for an entire orderly universe like ours to arise again. Such hypothetical observers are called Boltzmann brains, minds that flicker into existence with false memories, briefly experience consciousness, and then dissolve back into noise. The idea sounds ridiculous, and yet it emerges naturally from combining vast time with vast space. If such observers are possible, and if time is infinite, then they vastly outnumber ordinary observers like us, which raises a quiet, unsettling question. Why are we not one of them? This question is not meant to be answered comfortably. It highlights how extreme scale destabilizes assumptions that feel obvious on human timescales. The universe stops behaving like a stage for narratives and starts behaving like a statistical system running without concern for coherence. Time, in this context, is not a story. It is a process. And processes do not care who is watching. As the universe ages, its observable portion shrinks. Galaxies slip beyond reach. Stars die. The sky grows emptier. Trillions of years from now, even the memory of a rich cosmos will be erased by expansion and decay. And yet, beyond our horizon, beyond our time, the universe may still be unfolding in ways we will never know. The size of the universe ensures that most of its history is inaccessible, not just spatially, but temporally. We exist in a narrow window, in a brief era where stars shine, complexity flourishes, and questions can be asked. This is not the universe's default state. It is an exception. Perspective feels stable only because we live inside narrow limits. You wake up. The world is still there. The sun rises roughly where it did yesterday. Time moves forward at a familiar pace. Causes precede effects. The present feels like a well-defined moment, sliding smoothly from past to future. This sense of now feels fundamental. It is not. In a universe of extreme size and age, perspective becomes fragile, local, almost accidental. Relativity already hints at this. Different observers, moving at different speeds, experience time differently. Events that seem simultaneous to one observer are not simultaneous to another. There is no universal present slicing cleanly across the cosmos at human scales. This doesn't matter. The effects are too small to notice. The illusion of a shared now survives intact. At cosmic scales, the illusion collapses. When you look at the night sky, you are not seeing a single moment. You are seeing a collage of different times. Light from nearby stars may be only a few years old. Light from distant galaxies may have been traveling for billions of years. Each photon carries a timestamp from a different era of the universe. There is no single cosmic present being displayed above you. The sky is a museum of moments. Now, consider the observable universe as a whole. Its boundary is not defined by distance alone, but by time, by how long the universe has existed and how fast space has expanded. Beyond that boundary are regions whose now will never intersect with ours. They have their own histories, their own presents, their own futures, forever disconnected. This means that when we talk about the universe at a given time, we are already simplifying beyond what reality allows. There is no global clock ticking for everything that exists. There is no master frame in which all events line up neatly. The universe is not synchronized. In a universe small enough, this would be an inconvenience. In a universe this large, it becomes existential, because it means that most of reality is not just far away, it is temporally unreachable, not merely unseen, but unsynchronized with us in any meaningful way. Their present is not our present. Their future may already be decided in ways that will never matter to us. Their past may contain events that, from their perspective, are as ancient as the Big Bang is to us, and there is nothing we can do about it. This shatters another quiet assumption, that existence unfolds together. We tend to imagine the universe as a single story, with a beginning, a middle, and an end. A grand narrative in which everything participates. In truth, the universe may be more like an anthology, countless stories running in parallel, rarely intersecting, often unaware of one another's existence. Scale is what allows this fragmentation. When space and time grow large enough, unity becomes optional. This has implications not just for cosmology, but for identity. You feel like a continuous self because your memories form a coherent chain across time. Your past influences your present. Your present shapes your future. But even this continuity depends on narrow conditions, stable biology, reliable memory, predictable physics. Zoom out far enough, and continuity itself becomes rare. Civilizations rise and vanish. Species appear and go extinct. Entire biospheres flicker briefly and disappear without leaving a trace beyond their local region of space-time. In a universe this large, most complexity is short-lived. The cosmos does not preserve stories. It allows them to happen, then erases them. This is not cruelty. It is scale. And yet, within this vast indifference, something strange happens. Perspective, however small, however brief, still exists. Somewhere in the universe, at this very moment, minds are forming experiences. Questions are being asked. Patterns are being noticed. The universe does not care about these moments, but they happen anyway. Your perspective exists not because the universe supports it, but because local conditions briefly permit it. Gravity clumped matter. Chemistry allowed complexity. Biology found a way to remember itself across time. Against astronomical odds, perspective emerged, and it will vanish again. This realization can feel bleak, but it also reframes scale in an unexpected way. If perspective is local and temporary, then its value does not come from being large or lasting forever. It comes from existing at all. In a universe that does not guarantee meaning, the act of experiencing becomes its own justification. Still, the discomfort remains. Because when you place your fleeting perspective against a universe that may be infinite in space and endless in time, the imbalance is overwhelming. You are not just small, you are transient in a system that barely registers transience as an event. To survive confronting a universe this large, humans learned to compress it, not physically, of course, but conceptually. We build models, simplified representations that strip away detail in exchange for understanding. Equations replace objects. Parameters replace stories. The universe becomes something that can fit on a chalkboard or inside a simulation. This is not arrogance. It is necessity. Without abstraction, the size of the universe would paralyze inquiry. You cannot think directly about billions of galaxies any more than you can feel the weight of the atmosphere pressing on your skin. The numbers are too large, the structures too vast, the consequences too diffuse. So cosmology does something clever. It averages. Instead of tracking individual galaxies, it treats matter as a smooth fluid. Instead of following every fluctuation, it focuses on large-scale behavior. The universe, at its biggest scales, becomes homogeneous and isotropic, roughly the same everywhere, in every direction. This assumption is called the cosmological principle, and it works remarkably well. When astronomers map the distribution of galaxies across enormous distances, the universe does appear statistically uniform. No preferred center, no privileged direction, just variations around an overall sameness. This is comforting. Uniformity suggests simplicity. It suggests that the universe, despite its size, obeys clean rules, that the chaos of local detail dissolves into order when viewed from far enough away. But this comfort comes at a cost, because averaging hides extremes. When you smooth the universe into a fluid, you erase the voids hundreds of millions of light-years across. You erase the filaments, the walls, the superclusters. You erase the fact that some regions are teeming with galaxies, while others are almost completely empty. The real universe is not smooth, it is lumpy, and those lumps matter. They matter because they are where complexity lives. Stars, planets, life, none of these emerge from a perfectly uniform cosmos. They arise from irregularities, from tiny fluctuations amplified over time by gravity. The cosmic microwave background shows this clearly. Its faint temperature variations, only one part in 100,000, represent the seeds of all future structure. From those tiny imperfections came everything you recognize as a place. In a sense, the universe had to be uneven to become interesting. But unevenness also creates a problem when scale becomes extreme. In a universe large enough, every statistical outlier appears somewhere. Regions that deviate strongly from the average are not mistakes. They are inevitable. Given enough volume, the tails of every distribution become populated. There will be regions far denser than ours, regions far emptier, regions where initial conditions led to radically different outcomes. Our cosmic neighborhood may not be typical at all. This is deeply uncomfortable for science, which relies on the assumption that what we observe locally can tell us something general. If the universe is too large, that assumption weakens. Observations become samples of unknown representativeness. We are peering out from a single location at a single time, inside a structure whose total size may dwarf everything we can see. It is like trying to infer the shape of an entire ocean by studying one wave. Scientists are acutely aware of this limitation. They design surveys to reach farther, measure more precisely, reduce uncertainty. But no amount of care can overcome a fundamental horizon. There will always be regions we cannot observe, patterns we cannot confirm, variations we cannot sample. At some scale, ignorance is not a failure, it is a boundary condition. This realization forces cosmology into a strange position. It is a science that seeks universal truths while being confined to a finite patch of reality. It builds global models from local data, knowing that those models may never be fully testable. The universe, by being so large, pushes science toward humility. And yet, the models work. They predict the expansion of space. They explain the abundance of elements. They account for the growth of structure from tiny fluctuations. Again and again, simplified descriptions capture essential truths about a system far larger than anything the models explicitly include. This success is both reassuring and unsettling. Reassuring because it suggests the universe is not arbitrary. There is coherence beneath the scale. Unsettling because it means that the deepest truths about existence may be expressible in equations so compact they fit on a page, while their consequences unfold across trillions of light-years and billions of years. The compression of reality into mathematics is a triumph of the human mind. It is also a reminder of our distance from what those equations describe. We do not experience expanding spacetime. We do not feel cosmic curvature. We do not sense horizons slipping beyond reach. We infer them, indirectly, through instruments and models that translate the universe into numbers, and then we trust those numbers. This trust is not blind. It is earned through consistency, prediction, and cross-checking, but it is still an act of faith that the compressed version of the universe retains what matters. As scale increases, that faith is tested. There is a reason the universe is this big. Not a purpose, not an intention, but a mechanism. To understand it, cosmologists had to rewind the universe far beyond the first stars, beyond atoms, beyond even the formation of light itself. They had to look back to a moment when the universe was not just smaller, but fundamentally different. A moment when scale itself was rewritten. This moment is called inflation. Inflation is not the Big Bang itself, but something that may have happened immediately after it, a brief, violent burst of expansion that stretched space by an enormous factor in a fraction of a second. During this episode, the universe may have expanded faster than at any other time in its history. How much faster? Enough that a region smaller than an atom could balloon into something larger than entire galaxies. Enough that tiny quantum fluctuations were stretched across cosmic distances, becoming the seeds of all future structure. Enough that the universe was made vast before it ever had a chance to become interesting. Inflation was proposed not to explain size, but to solve puzzles. Why is the universe so uniform in all directions? Why is space so close to flat? Why do distant regions of the cosmos share the same basic properties despite never having been in contact? Inflation answers these questions by erasing initial differences. It smooths space by stretching it so dramatically that any curvature or irregularity becomes nearly invisible, like the surface of a balloon that appears flatter the more it inflates. But inflation comes with a price. If it happened once, it could have happened more than once. In many versions of the theory, inflation does not end everywhere at the same time. Instead, it continues in some regions while stopping in others. Where it stops, universes like ours form regions of space that cool, fill with particles, and eventually produce stars and galaxies. Where it continues, space keeps expanding at an exponential rate, spawning more regions, more universes, more pockets of reality. This idea is called eternal inflation, and it is here that size truly escapes all restraint. In eternal inflation, the universe is not just large, it is generative. It keeps making more space, more regions, more possible universes, without end. The part we inhabit is just one bubble in an ever-growing cosmic foam. Beyond our observable universe may lie other universes with different properties, different physical constants, different particle types, different laws of physics altogether. This is not fantasy. It is what many inflationary models naturally predict. And if eternal inflation is correct, then the true size of reality is not just worse than you think. It is effectively unbounded. There is no total volume to measure, no final count of universes, no overarching structure that contains it all. Inflation keeps producing more space faster than anything else can keep up. Even infinity may not do it justice. This introduces a profound problem: measure. In a universe that produces infinite regions, how do you define probability? How do you compare infinities? How do you say what is typical or rare when everything happens infinitely many times? This is known as the measure problem in cosmology, and it remains unsolved. Without a way to regulate infinity, predictions lose their meaning. Any outcome you can imagine occurs somewhere, endlessly. The universe becomes a statistical paradox where explanation collapses under excess. And yet, we are here. We observe a universe with specific properties, stable atoms, long-lived stars, complex chemistry. This suggests that our region is not arbitrary, but selected in some way, not by intention, but by compatibility. This leads to a controversial idea, the anthropic principle. It states, simply, that we observe the universe to be the way it is because, if it were different, we would not be here to observe it. In a multiverse of possibilities, only certain regions permit observers. Naturally, those are the ones observed. This idea is often misunderstood as mystical or lazy. It is neither. It is a logical statement about selection bias in a vast space of possibilities. But it is also deeply unsatisfying. It replaces explanation with survival. It says, not the universe is this way because it must be, but the universe is this way because otherwise, no one would be asking. In a universe shaped by eternal inflation, meaning becomes local by necessity. There is no global reason for anything. There is only compatibility and consequence. Scale, once again, dissolves the comforts of intuition. If reality is this large, if it contains endlessly branching regions with different laws, then our universe is not the stage of existence, but one outcome among countless others, a successful one, but not a central one. If the universe is this large, if it contains regions forever beyond reach, or even entire universes beyond observation, then the idea of laws of physics begins to wobble. We are used to thinking of physical laws as absolute. Gravity works the same everywhere. Light travels at a fixed speed. Particles obey universal rules. These assumptions are so deeply ingrained that questioning them feels almost heretical. But extreme scale has a way of exposing hidden assumptions. All the laws we know have been tested in a very small region of reality. One galaxy, one corner of space-time, one narrow epoch in cosmic history. Even when we observe distant galaxies, we are still sampling conditions remarkably similar to our own. The same atomic spectra, the same basic forces. This consistency is striking and comforting. Yet inflationary models and multiverse ideas suggest that this consistency may not extend everywhere. The laws we observe could be local byproducts of how our region cooled, settled, and stabilized after inflation ended here. Elsewhere, the vacuum itself may be different. In modern physics, empty space is not truly empty. It has structure, energy levels, and possible configurations. These configurations determine the properties of particles, the strengths of forces, and the behavior of space-time itself. If different regions of the universe settled into different vacuum states, then different laws would apply there. Some universes might expand too quickly for galaxies to form. Others might collapse almost immediately. Some might lack stable atoms. Some might never permit complexity of any kind. Our universe, in this view, is not inevitable. It is compatible. This idea is deeply unsettling because it reframes the most fundamental questions in science. Instead of asking, why are the laws of physics what they are, we are forced to ask, why are we in a region where these laws apply? The answer may be statistical rather than explanatory. And statistics, once again, are amplified by scale. In a vast enough reality, every consistent set of laws occurs somewhere. Regions with life-supporting physics are rare, but rarity does not matter when there are infinitely many trials. This perspective strips away a comforting sense of necessity. The universe stops feeling like a finely tuned machine and starts feeling like a sprawling landscape where most regions are barren and a few happen to be fertile. We find ourselves in one of the fertile patches, not because it was meant to be so, but because nowhere else could we exist. This does not make the universe hostile. It makes it indifferent. There is another consequence of this vastness that is often overlooked: isolation. If different regions of reality obey different laws, then they are not just far away, they are fundamentally unreachable. No signal, no particle, no probe could ever cross from one set of laws into another. They are not neighbors. They are separate worlds in the deepest sense. The universe, at its largest scale, may not be a single coherent system, but a patchwork of causally disconnected domains. The word universe may be a misnomer. There may be no single totality to unify. This challenges the human instinct to unify. We like final theories, ultimate explanations, a sense that everything fits together in one grand structure in extreme scale resists this impulse. It suggests that reality may be fragmented, contextual, and locally consistent without being globally simple. The size of the universe makes room for this fragmentation, and it raises an unsettling possibility that our search for fundamental explanations may end not with a single, elegant answer, but with a catalogue of possibilities and a recognition of our own contingency. This is not a failure of science. It is a consequence of ambition colliding with scale. Science was born in a world where distances were small, times were short, and causes were traceable. As it expands its reach, it encounters regimes where those assumptions break down. The universe is not obligated to be explainable in the way we prefer, and yet the human mind keeps pushing outward, mapping what it can, modeling what it must, and accepting uncertainty where it cannot go further. When everything is this large, the question of meaning stops being philosophical and starts becoming unavoidable. It is easy to talk about size, distance, probability, and laws as abstract ideas. They remain tolerable as long as they stay technical. But once you internalize what extreme scale actually implies, the implications drift inward. They touch the question people rarely admit they are asking beneath all others: does anything matter? In a small universe, meaning can feel built in. Actions ripple outward. Causes lead to visible effects. History feels like a chain where each link influences the next. Even if you are small, you are part of a story that feels finite and shared. In a universe that may be infinite, that feeling erodes. When space stretches beyond any possible contact, when time extends so far that all structure eventually dissolves, the intuitive link between action and consequence weakens. Most of what you do will never influence more than an infinitesimal region of reality. Most of what exists will never know you were here. This realization is often framed as nihilism. It doesn't have to be, but it does demand honesty. The universe does not appear to provide meaning at large scales. There is no cosmic ledger tracking significance, no universal audience witnessing events, no final convergence where everything that happened is gathered up and given purpose. Meaning, if it exists, does not come from the size of the universe. It comes from inside the small regions where complexity briefly arises. This is where extreme scale creates a paradox. The larger the universe becomes, the less it seems to care, and yet, within that indifference, islands of caring still appear. Conscious systems emerge that assign value, feel loss, experience joy, and ask questions about their place in everything. These experiences are not erased by cosmic size. They are localized by it. Meaning becomes something that happens, not something that is guaranteed. This can feel unsettling because it removes external validation. There is no cosmic confirmation that your experiences matter. There is no universal acknowledgement waiting beyond the horizon. But there is also a quiet liberation in this. If meaning is not imposed from above, it can be constructed from within. It can be defined by relationships, by memory, by experience. It can be temporary without being trivial. A moment does not need to last forever to matter. A story does not need to be known everywhere to be real. The universe being vast does not negate meaning, it decentralizes it. Each region capable of experience becomes its own center of significance. Each mind becomes a point where the universe briefly becomes aware of itself, however locally, however fleetingly. This reframing does not make the scale of the universe less intimidating, it makes it less hostile. The size of the universe ensures that no single perspective dominates. No narrative overwhelms all others. No final meaning crowds out local ones. Everything that matters, matters somewhere. This is not a comforting conclusion in the traditional sense. It does not promise permanence or cosmic justice. It does not guarantee that efforts accumulate into a grand total, but it does suggest that the absence of universal meaning is not the same as the absence of meaning altogether. In a universe this large, meaning is small by necessity, and that is okay. As we continue, we will begin to slow down. The journey outward has reached its most abstract extremes. From here, the story starts folding back inward, not to deny the scale we've uncovered, but to learn how to live inside it. After all the abstractions, after inflation, infinity, horizons, and vanishing laws, the mind does something very human. It returns to the sky. Not the theoretical sky of models and metrics, but the one you can actually see, the quiet one. The one that exists above rooftops, trees, highways, and sleeping cities. The sky that does not announce its scale, but lets you sense it indirectly. This return is not a retreat. It is grounding, because despite everything we now know about the universe's size, the experience of looking up has not changed. Stars still appear as points. Constellations still feel fixed. The Milky Way still stretches across the darkness like a pale scar of light. Your eyes cannot see expansion. They cannot see inflation or horizons or infinite repetition. They see calm. This contrast is important. The universe, at its largest scale, is violent in its growth and indifferent in its outcomes, but locally, it is astonishingly gentle. The same laws that allow galaxies to drift apart also allow atoms to remain stable. The same expansion that isolates regions from one another leaves your immediate surroundings undisturbed. Scale protects as much as it overwhelms. If the universe were smaller, its violence would be closer. Catastrophes would overlap. Events would collide more often. The vast emptiness between stars and galaxies is not just frightening, it is what allows long-lived structures to exist at all. Distance is a kind of mercy. From your position on Earth, the nearest supernova is safely far away. The nearest black hole does not tug at your planet. The expansion of space does not tear molecules apart. You exist in a quiet pocket, shielded by scale. This is easy to forget when focusing only on size as threat. The same immensity that makes you feel insignificant also makes stability possible. There is another subtle comfort in returning to the night sky. Despite everything, the sky looks the same for everyone on Earth. No matter where you are, no matter who you are, you share access to the same distant lights. The universe does not discriminate in its presentation. It offers the same stars to every observer capable of looking up. In a universe where most regions are forever disconnected, this shared experience matters. It is a reminder that while cosmic scale fragments reality at the largest levels, it also unifies experience locally. Within a small region, this planet, this era, perspectives overlap. Stories can be shared. Meaning can be communal. You are not alone in feeling small. Humans have been reacting to the night sky for as long as there have been humans. Long before cosmology, long before science, people sensed that the sky represented something beyond daily life. They did not know about galaxies or expansion, but they understood distance intuitively. They understood that whatever was up there was vast and unreachable. What has changed is not the feeling. It is the explanation, and the explanation, for all its discomfort, has not destroyed the feeling. If anything, it has deepened it. Awe now comes with context. Wonder comes with numbers. Fear comes with understanding. The sky has not become smaller. It has become heavier when you realize that each star is a sun, that each faint smudge is a galaxy, that each point of light represents a region of space larger than anything the human mind evolved to imagine. The quiet becomes profound. The universe is not pressing down on you. It is receding, and you are here in the brief moment where it is still visible. This matters more than it seems, because the future of the universe is one of increasing isolation over unimaginable spans of time. Galaxies will disappear from view. The sky will grow darker. Observers in the far future may never know that the universe was once rich with light. You live in a privileged era, not because it was chosen, but because it happened. This does not make you important in a cosmic sense, but it makes your moment rare. As we move forward, we will begin to explore what it means to exist in this narrow window, to be aware of the universe's size while still living inside its quiet corners. The scale is not going away, but neither is the sky. And for now, that is enough to keep looking. Awareness changes scale in a subtle way. Once you know how large the universe truly is, you can never quite return to seeing it as a simple backdrop. The night sky stops being decorative. It becomes informational. Every dark gap, every faint glow, every empty stretch between stars now carries weight. You are no longer just looking at space. You are looking at history, distance, and absence layered together. This awareness does not arrive all at once. It settles slowly, the way deep time settles. At first, the numbers feel abstract. Billions of years, trillions of kilometers, horizons you will never cross. But over time, something changes. The abstractions start to bleed into intuition. You begin to feel the emptiness, not as fear, but as quiet. The space between stars is not just large, it is dominant. Almost all of the universe's volume is nothing at all. Matter is the exception. Structure is rare. Light is precious because it comes from such isolated islands. The universe is mostly silence. This is easy to miss because human environments are crowded. Sound, light, movement, information, everything presses in on us at once. Our senses evolved to handle density, not emptiness. But the cosmos is defined by the opposite condition. It is sparse, beyond comprehension. Between galaxies lie voids so large that even galaxies are uncommon within them. Between stars lie distances so great that planetary systems feel like anomalies. Between atoms lies space vast compared to the particles themselves. At every scale, emptiness dominates, and yet, this emptiness is not useless. It is what allows things to persist. If matter were packed closer together, stars would collide more often. Galaxies would tear themselves apart. Radiation would saturate everything. Life, if it emerged at all, would be constantly disrupted. The universe's size is not just excess, it is spacing, room for processes to unfold without interference, room for complexity to stabilize, room for time to do its work slowly. In this sense, the universe is not hostile to life. It is indifferent in a way that accidentally permits it. This reframing matters. When people feel overwhelmed by cosmic scale, it is often because they imagine themselves crushed by it, erased by it, rendered irrelevant. But scale does not act like weight. It does not push inward. It pulls outward. The universe does not crowd you out. It gives you space. The tragedy, if there is one, is not that the universe is too large to care, but that most of it will never know that caring occurred at all. Moments of awareness flare up briefly in isolated pockets, then vanish without trace beyond their local light cones. The universe forgets almost everything, but forgetting is not erasure in the moment. Right now, experience exists, thought exists, awareness exists. That is not undone by the future vastness that will eventually swallow all records. The universe being large does not invalidate the present. It contextualizes it. There is another layer to this awareness that often goes unspoken. Knowing the size of the universe means knowing that no help is coming. There is no external intervention waiting beyond the horizon. No cosmic rescue, no higher-level system monitoring outcomes and stepping in when things go wrong. Whatever meaning, care, or continuity exists must be generated locally. This can feel bleak, or it can feel clarifying. It means responsibility does not diffuse outward into the cosmos. It stays close, between people, between generations, between minds that briefly overlap in time and space. The universe will not save us from ourselves, but it also will not stop us from trying. Extreme scale strips away the illusion that answers come from above. It forces attention back to what is near, tangible, and fragile. In a strange way, the vastness of everything else sharpens the value of what is close. A conversation matters because it happens at all. A memory matters because it exists in a universe that forgets. A life matters because it is a rare concentration of complexity in an ocean of emptiness. These are not sentimental statements. They are statistical ones. In a universe dominated by void, anything that feels, thinks, or remembers is an anomaly worth noticing. As we continue, we will lean further into this quiet shift from being overwhelmed by size to learning how to exist meaningfully within it, without denial, without false comfort. The universe is still enormous, but you are still here. And for the moment, that fact holds. Once you stop trying to compete with the universe's size, something unexpected happens. The fear softens. Not because the universe becomes smaller, or kinder, or more comprehensible, but because the struggle against it quietly ends. You stop measuring yourself against something that was never meant to be a reference point in the first place. The universe is not a standard to live up to. It is a condition to exist within. This shift is subtle, but profound. When people first confront cosmic scale, the instinct is comparison. I am small. The universe is vast. Therefore, I am insignificant. But this logic assumes that size and significance are measured on the same axis. They are not. Size is a property of space. Significance is a property of experience. The universe can be unimaginably large and still contain moments that are complete in themselves. A thought does not become weaker because it occurs in a small region. A feeling does not lose intensity because it will not echo across billions of light years. Intensity does not scale with volume. The mistake is thinking that it should. Once this is understood, the universe's size stops feeling like a verdict and starts feeling like context, a vast, impersonal backdrop against which something very specific, very local, and very fragile is happening. This does not elevate humanity to cosmic importance. It does something quieter. It returns importance to where it has always lived, inside systems that can care. The universe is mostly incapable of caring. It does not feel loss when stars die. It does not celebrate when galaxies form. It does not notice when regions slip beyond each other's horizons. Caring is rare. And rarity, in a universe this large, is not trivial. The fact that the universe is so big actually sharpens this contrast. It makes the emergence of caring systems stand out more, not less. Against a backdrop of near total indifference, even brief awareness is extraordinary. Not chosen, not destined, just extraordinary. There is also a strange peace in realizing that the universe is not watching. No audience, no cosmic judgment, no final score. Actions do not need to impress eternity. They only need to matter where they occur. This removes a heavy burden. You are not required to justify your existence to the cosmos. The cosmos does not ask. It does not listen. It does not evaluate. It simply continues. And within that continuation, you are free to decide what matters to you and those around you. This perspective does not make loss easier. It does not erase suffering. It does not guarantee happy endings. The universe's size offers no protection from pain, but it also does not amplify it. Pain is local. So is joy. So is meaning. The universe's vastness does not dilute them. It merely ensures that they are not universal, and that is okay. There is a temptation, when faced with something as large as the universe, to retreat into abstraction, to talk only about theories, equations, and distant scales where emotion feels irrelevant. But abstraction is not the only mature response. Acceptance is another. Accepting that the universe is larger than any story we can tell about it. Accepting that most of it will remain unknown. Accepting that answers may never converge into a single, satisfying picture. This acceptance does not end curiosity. It refines it. Instead of asking, "What is everything for?" the question becomes, "What is happening here, now? And why does it feel the way it does?" These are smaller questions, but they are answerable. And in a universe where so much is inaccessible, answerable questions are precious. As the journey continues, the tone will continue to slow. The outward expansion has reached its limit. From here on, the movement is inward, not toward denial of scale, but toward coexistence with it. The universe will remain far worse than you think in size, but you no longer need it to be anything else. You are not here to conquer it. You are here to experience a brief, unlikely moment within it. And that, against all odds, is exactly what is happening. Living inside a universe this large requires a kind of quiet recalibration, not a dramatic shift, not a revelation that arrives with fireworks and certainty, but a gradual adjustment in how attention is placed, what is emphasized, what is released, what no longer needs to be carried. Once the shock of scale fades, what remains is not despair, but perspective. You begin to notice how small your daily world truly is, not in a diminishing way, but in a clarifying one. Your concerns occupy a narrow band of space and time. They are bounded. They have edges. They can be addressed, resolved, endured. The universe, by contrast, has no obligation to resolve anything. This contrast can be grounding. It means your life is not a cosmic problem to be solved. It is a local process to be lived. You do not need to reconcile your existence with the size of the universe, any more than a wave needs to justify itself to the ocean. Waves rise, waves fall. The ocean remains. This does not make the wave meaningless. It makes it temporary, and temporariness, once accepted, changes how value is assigned. Permanence stops being the benchmark. Duration stops being the metric. What matters is not how long something lasts, but how fully it exists while it does. In a universe measured in billions of years, intensity matters more than longevity. A star that burns for 10 billion years is impressive. A human life that feels deeply for a few decades is no less real because it is brief. Reality does not grade on a curve where size wins by default. Scale is descriptive, not evaluative. The universe does not rank experiences by how much space they occupy. It does not reward endurance over presence. Those judgments are human inventions, and that is not a flaw. It is a feature of being the kind of systems that can care. There is another adjustment that happens when you truly absorb cosmic scale. You stop expecting closure. In stories, endings matter. Threads are tied up. Questions are answered. Meaning is revealed. The universe does not work this way. It is not structured like a narrative. It does not build toward resolution. Processes continue until they don't. Stars burn until they exhaust their fuel. Galaxies merge until expansion pulls them apart. Life persists until conditions no longer support it. There is no final chapter where everything is explained, and that is uncomfortable only if you expect one. Once that expectation is released, the absence of closure becomes less threatening. The universe is not withholding answers. It is simply not constructed to provide them in the way stories do. This realization can be oddly calming. It means you do not need to wait for the universe to make sense before you live inside it. You do not need to understand everything to participate. You are already part of the process, regardless of comprehension. The universe does not pause until it is understood. Neither should you. Cosmic scale also reframes ambition. In a small universe, ambition might aim outward toward lasting monuments, enduring legacies, permanent marks. In a universe this large, permanence is exposed as fragile. Even galaxies are temporary structures. Even stars are brief. Nothing escapes time. Ambition, then, shifts inward toward influence rather than endurance, toward effect rather than permanence, toward how moments shape other moments nearby rather than how they echo across eternity. This does not cheapen ambition. It focuses it. There is a dignity in accepting that your sphere of impact is limited and still choosing to act with care inside it. In a universe that offers no guarantees, intentional action becomes meaningful precisely because it is not enforced by cosmic design. You act because you choose to. This choice matters even if the universe does not notice, especially if it does not notice. As the journey continues, the universe remains vast, silent, and indifferent. That will not change. But your relationship to that vastness continues to evolve. Fear gives way to familiarity. Overwhelm gives way to quiet respect. Not mastery, not comfort, but coexistence. You are not outside the universe, looking in. You are one of the things it is doing. And for now, that is enough to continue. At some point, the universe stops feeling like a question. Not because it has been answered, but because the need for an answer loosens its grip. The mind, after traveling outward through impossible distances and inward through unsettling implications, settles into a quieter state. The universe is large. That fact no longer demands a reaction. This is not indifference, it is familiarity. Just as the ocean eventually becomes background noise to those who live near it, cosmic scale becomes something you carry without constantly responding to. It is there. It shapes everything. But it does not require constant attention. This is where understanding matures. Early awareness of the universe's size often comes with urgency. What does this mean for me? Later, the urgency fades. The question shifts. How do I live, knowing this? The answer is not cosmic. It is practical. You live by accepting limits. Not the limits of ambition or curiosity, but the limits of reach. You cannot touch most of the universe. You cannot influence it. You cannot witness its full story. That was never on the table. What is on the table is attention. Attention is one of the rarest resources in the universe. Not because it is physically scarce, but because it requires specific conditions, complex systems, stable energy flows, memory, awareness. Vast regions of the cosmos will never host anything capable of paying attention to anything at all. Attention happens here, and where attention happens, experience happens. The universe may be mostly empty, mostly dark, mostly indifferent, but in these small pockets, something different occurs. The universe becomes aware of contrast, of beauty, of loss, of time passing. This does not make awareness cosmically important. It makes it cosmically rare. Rarity, again, is not significance, but it is worth acknowledging. When you think about the size of the universe now, it no longer feels like a threat to your existence. It feels like a boundary condition, a reminder that you are part of a process far larger than yourself, but not in competition with it. The universe does not ask you to be infinite. It asks nothing at all. The pressure to justify yourself against infinity dissolves once you realize it was never imposed from outside. It was self-generated, an expectation inherited from stories that promised meaning would be revealed at the largest scales. But meaning does not live there. Meaning lives at the scale where choices can be made. And choices are only possible in finite systems. Infinity cannot choose. The universe's vastness ensures that most of reality is static, repetitive, or unreachable. Change true, consequential change happens locally, in pockets where energy flows are just right, where systems can respond, adapt, and remember. That is where life happens. That is where you are. The size of the universe does not diminish this fact. It isolates it, sharpens it, and gives it contrast. A candle is most visible in a dark room. So is awareness in a universe dominated by void. As this realization settles, the universe stops feeling like something you need to confront. It becomes something you coexist with, an enormous, impersonal environment in which small, meaningful processes unfold. The universe will continue expanding long after you are gone. It will continue forgetting almost everything that happens within it. That is not a judgment. It is a description. And descriptions do not demand despair. They invite adjustment. Eventually, awareness returns to the body. After traveling so far outward, past stars, past galaxies, past the limits of observation, attention drifts back to something small and immediate. Breath, weight, stillness, the quiet fact of being located somewhere specific here. This return is not a contradiction of everything you've seen. It is a consequence of it. In a universe this large, location becomes meaningful precisely because it is limited. You are not everywhere. You are not spread thin across infinity. You are concentrated. That concentration is what allows experience to exist at all. The universe does not experience itself as a whole. It does not have a unified awareness spanning its vastness. If awareness exists anywhere within it, it exists only in fragments, localized, temporary, embodied. This means that being here is not a failure to grasp the universe's scale. It is the only way scale can ever be grasped. Your body anchors you in one place and one moment. That anchoring is not a constraint to escape, but a requirement for perception. Without limits, there is no contrast. Without contrast, there is nothing to notice. Infinity, if experienced directly, would be indistinguishable from nothing. So the universe gives itself limits, stars, planets, chemistry, nervous systems, not intentionally, but inevitably. Where conditions allow, structure forms. Where structure forms, memory appears. Where memory appears, perspective follows. And perspective requires a point of view. You are a point of view. This is not metaphorical. It is literal. You are a location in space-time where the universe briefly folds in on itself and notices something. Not everything, just enough. This reframes the relationship between smallness and importance. You are not important because you matter to the universe. You are important because you are one of the very few places where anything matters at all. Importance is not assigned by scale. It is generated by care. The universe can afford to be vast because it does not have to feel itself everywhere. It allows feeling to happen in scattered pockets, without supervision, without permanence. That is what makes experience fragile and valuable. The realization that the universe will forget almost everything can feel unsettling at first. But forgetting does not negate presence. A thought does not need to be remembered forever to have occurred. A moment does not need to echo across time to be real. Reality does not require an archive. It requires occurrence. Right now, something is occurring that is not erased by the future. The universe, being vast, does not flatten the present. It frames it. It creates a contrast so extreme that the present moment becomes sharply defined, finite, bounded, and irreplaceable. There will never be another moment exactly like this one. Not because the universe is small, but because it is so large that repetition does not diminish specificity. Even if similar moments exist elsewhere, this one is anchored to this location, this body, this history. This is where you are, and that matters because you are here to notice it. As the journey continues, the language becomes quieter. The need to explain fades. Not because there is nothing left to say, but because explanation has done its work. The scale has been confronted. The shock absorbed. What remains is not knowledge, but orientation. You know where you stand, not in the sense of coordinates or cosmic address, but in the sense of relationship. You know that the universe is vast beyond comprehension, and that your existence does not need to match it in scale to be legitimate. The universe does not ask you to be infinite, it allows you to be finite. And in that allowance, something gentle emerges. You can rest. The stars will continue their slow motions without your attention. Galaxies will drift apart whether or not you watch them. Expansion will carry regions beyond reach. Silently, patiently, you do not need to follow. For now, it is enough to be here. Breathing, existing, aware. The universe is still immense, but you are no longer lost inside it. There is a quiet relief in no longer chasing the edge. Once you accept that the universe has no obligation to be graspable in its entirety, curiosity changes character. It becomes less urgent, less anxious. You are no longer trying to conquer the unknown or shrink it down to something safe. You are simply observing. The universe does not resist this shift. It has always been what it is: vast, expanding, mostly empty, indifferent to being understood, yet strangely generous in what it allows to be known locally. You begin to notice how much of life unfolds without reference to cosmic scale at all. Morning light through a window, the rhythm of breath, the sound of distant traffic or wind moving through trees. These experiences do not feel small because the universe is large. They feel complete because they occur within boundaries that give them shape. Boundaries are not failures of imagination. They are what make perception possible. A universe without limits would be impossible to experience. A life without limits would dissolve into noise. Finite duration, finite reach, finite memory. These are not shortcomings to overcome. They are the conditions under which meaning can exist. The universe's size, once seen as overwhelming, becomes the reason limits exist at all. The vast emptiness between stars ensures that systems like yours can remain coherent. The long stretches of time between major cosmic events allow stability. The isolation of regions protects complexity from constant disruption. Scale is not pressing down on you. It is holding everything apart just enough. There is also a strange intimacy in realizing how isolated you are. Not lonely, isolated. Loneliness implies the absence of connection where connection is expected. Cosmic isolation is different. It is simply the fact that most of reality is not in conversation with you. It never was. It never needed to be. Connection, then, becomes something that happens by proximity, not entitlement. You connect with what is near, with what shares your slice of time, with what can respond. That is enough. The universe's vastness ensures that connection is precious because it is not guaranteed. Two minds overlapping in time and space is an unlikely event in a cosmos dominated by void. That overlap does not need cosmic endorsement to be meaningful. It is meaningful because it occurs. This understanding slowly reshapes how the universe feels. It stops being an adversary. It stops being a judge. It becomes an environment immense, impersonal, but not hostile. Like an ocean that does not care about the boat floating on it. yet allows the boat to exist because its conditions make floating possible. You do not curse the ocean for being deep, you learn how to float. The universe is deep in the same way. As you settle into this perspective, the earlier shock, the feeling that the universe is far worse than you think in size, loses its sting. The statement remains true. The size is still unimaginable. The distances still defy intuition. But worse turns out to mean something different than it first appeared. It is worse for narratives that demand centrality. Worse for stories that promise ultimate resolution. Worse for expectations that everything must add up to a single, final meaning. But it is not worse for existence itself. Existence does not need the universe to be small. It needs it to be permissive. And the universe, through sheer scale, is permissive in ways that smaller systems could never be. It gives room for failure without collapse, room for diversity without coordination, room for silence without erasure. You are living in that room. As the journey continues, the pace slows further. The need to explain recedes into the background. What remains is a kind of companionship with the idea of vastness, not friendship, not comfort, but familiarity. The universe does not loom anymore. It surrounds. And being surrounded is not the same as being crushed. For now, that distinction is enough to let the mind rest a little longer. At this point, the universe no longer feels like something you are standing in front of. It feels like something you are standing within. That difference matters. Standing in front of something implies opposition, a boundary, a sense that there is an object out there and a self in here. But standing within something changes the relationship. The vastness stops being an external fact to be confronted and becomes a surrounding condition, like air, or gravity, or time itself. You stop asking where the universe ends. You start noticing how it holds. The expansion continues, silently, far beyond your awareness. Galaxies drift apart, horizons close, entire regions slide beyond the possibility of contact. None of this requires your attention to proceed. The universe does not slow down because you have stopped looking. And yet, nothing essential is lost when your attention turns elsewhere. This is a strange kind of freedom. You are not responsible for the universe's motion. You do not need to keep it in mind for it to continue. It will not collapse if you rest. It will not forget how to expand if you stop measuring it. The universe is self-sustaining. You are allowed to be otherwise. This is often where people fear complacency, that accepting vastness will dull curiosity or diminish wonder. In practice, the opposite happens. Curiosity becomes lighter, wonder becomes quieter but deeper. You no longer need the universe to surprise you with size. It has already done that. Now it can surprise you with subtlety, with how stable atoms are, with how delicate life is, with how long stars manage to burn without falling apart, with how unlikely it is that awareness appears at all in a reality dominated by emptiness and silence. These are not small surprises. They only feel small when compared to infinity, which is not a fair comparison. Infinity flattens everything it touches. Once you stop using it as a yardstick, nuance returns. The universe is not only large, it is precise. The same laws that operate across billions of light years also operate inside your body. The same quantum rules that governed the early universe govern the chemistry of your thoughts. Scale changes outcomes, but not rules. This continuity is easy to overlook when focusing on size alone. Extreme scale can make reality feel fractured. Local here, cosmic there, disconnected by distance and time. But underneath that fragmentation is a remarkable unity. The universe does not reinvent itself at different scales. It reuses the same principles, unfolding them over different spans of space and time. You are not an exception to the universe. You are an expression of it. This is not poetic license. It is literal. Every atom in your body was forged in stars that lived and died long before your planet formed. Every particle obeys the same equations that shape galaxies and cosmic expansion. The universe did not stop at the edge of you. It continues through you. This realization quietly dissolves the last trace of opposition. You are not against the universe's size. You are not dwarfed by it in any meaningful sense. You are a localized configuration within it, temporarily stable, briefly aware. That is not a failure of scale. It is what scale allows. A universe small enough to be grasped all at once would be too cramped for this to happen. There would be no room for long chains of causation, no room for slow processes, no room for complexity to build layer by layer. Vastness is not a mistake. It is infrastructure. As this settles in, the universe's size stops demanding attention. It recedes into the background where it belongs, not ignored, but integrated. You carry the knowledge without constantly reacting to it, like knowing the earth is round, like knowing time passes, like knowing you are finite. These facts do not dominate every moment. They shape understanding quietly, steadily, without urgency. The universe is vast. You know this now. And knowing it does not require vigilance. It allows rest. As we move closer to the end of this long journey, the language will grow softer still. The universe will remain exactly as large as it ever was, but your relationship to that largeness has changed. You are no longer reaching for the edges. You are settling into the middle of your own moment. And for now, that is enough. There is a moment, after enough reflection, when even awe becomes quiet. Not because the universe has lost its ability to astonish, but because astonishment no longer needs to announce itself loudly. The mind stops bracing for impact. It no longer flinches at words like billion or infinite. Those concepts remain immense, but they no longer feel sharp. They feel distant, and distance, at this stage, is not alienating. It is soothing. The universe is doing what it has always done, expanding, cooling, rearranging itself according to simple rules applied over enormous spans. There is no urgency in it, no rush, no sense that something must be resolved soon. Cosmic time is patient. That patience is difficult to appreciate when life feels rushed, when days feel short, when moments slip away faster than expected. But against the backdrop of the universe, haste looks like a local illusion, a feature of short-lived systems trying to do many things before they change again. You are one of those systems, and that is not a criticism. It is simply how finite things behave. The universe does not ask you to slow down to its pace. It would be impossible anyway. Its timescales are too long, its changes too subtle. Instead, it allows you to move at yours, to experience urgency, desire, concern, and relief within a narrow band of time that feels meaningful because it is bounded. Urgency gives shape to experience. Without it, moments would blur. The universe, by being vast and slow, allows urgency to exist locally without infecting everything. Stars do not panic as they burn. Galaxies do not hurry as they drift apart. There is room for different tempos to coexist, This coexistence is one of the universe's quiet achievements. It holds fast processes and slow ones together without conflict. Atomic reactions occur in fractions of a second, while cosmic expansion unfolds over billions of years, and neither interrupts the other. Your thoughts flicker quickly. The universe changes slowly. Both are valid. As you rest in this understanding, the idea that the universe is far worse than you think in size transforms again. Worse implies harm, threat, or incompatibility. But what the universe's size really represents is separation of scales. Not everything is meant to interact. Not everything is meant to be close. Distance is not always loss. Sometimes it is protection. The nearest supernova is far away. The nearest galaxy collision will not involve you. The expansion of space does not tug at your atoms. The forces that dominate the largest scales are gentle locally, almost imperceptible. The universe's immensity keeps danger rare. It also keeps silence abundant. Silence is often mistaken for emptiness, but they are not the same. Emptiness is absence. Silence is space without interruption. The universe is full of silence, not because nothing exists, but because most things are far apart. That silence is what allows listening. And here, in this small pocket of space-time, listening is happening. Awareness is present. Thought moves gently, no longer racing toward conclusions or defenses. There is no need to decide what the universe means. There is no need to solve it. The universe does not present itself as a puzzle to be completed. It presents itself as a condition to be experienced from within, briefly, partially, and without obligation to understand the whole. You are doing exactly that. In this moment, you are aligned with the universe's scale, not by matching it, but by accepting your difference from it. You are fast where it is slow, focused where it is diffuse, aware where it is mostly not. This complementarity is not accidental. It is what allows awareness to exist at all. As the journey continues, there will be even less to add. The universe does not need more explanation. It does not need to be justified or reframed again. It is enough to let it be large and to let yourself be small without apology. The universe will keep going. You can rest a little longer here. Rest, in a universe like this, is not an escape. It is alignment. When you stop pushing against the idea of scale, stop trying to make it meaningful in the way stories demand, you begin to notice how little effort existence actually requires in this moment. The universe is not asking you to keep up with it. It is not measuring you against its distances or its age. It simply allows you to be where you are. Here, now. Things are slow enough to notice. Your breath moves in and out without instruction. Gravity holds you gently, reliably. Time passes at a rate your nervous system can tolerate. None of these conditions are guaranteed by the universe at large. They are local achievements, temporary and precise. They are happening anyway. This is one of the quiet gifts of scale. Because the universe is so large, it does not interfere often. It does not micromanage. It does not crowd every moment with consequence. Vastness creates buffers, spaces where processes can unfold without constant interruption. Your life exists inside one of those buffers. That does not make it safe forever. It makes it possible now. There is a temptation, when thinking about the universe's size, to imagine it as something looming overhead, pressing down with its enormity. But that image is backward. The universe does not press inward. It stretches outward. It pulls things apart. slowly, gently, across unimaginable distances. Locally, things are held together. Atoms cling to electrons. Molecules form bonds. Cells maintain boundaries. Bodies persist. Minds arise. None of this contradicts the universe's expansion. It coexists with it, protected by scale. The universe is large enough to allow small things to last. This is not a poetic claim. It is a physical one. If everything were closer together, forces would overwhelm structure. If time moved too quickly, patterns could not stabilize. If space were too small, complexity would collide with itself before it could deepen. Vastness is what gives delicacy a chance. As you sit with this, the earlier fear, the sense that the universe's size is somehow worse, feels increasingly misplaced. The size is not hostile. It is not aimed at you. It is simply the condition under which anything like you can exist at all. The universe did not grow large to make you feel small. It grew large because that is what space does. Your feelings about it are secondary. And that is not an insult. It is a release. You do not need to carry the universe emotionally. You do not need to resolve your relationship to infinity. You can let those ideas rest in the background, where they belong. While attention returns to what is immediate and real, a thought arises. A sound fades. A moment passes. These are not trivial events because they are small. They are complete events because they occur within boundaries that give them shape. The universe, by contrast, is not complete. It does not arrive at conclusions. It does not resolve into meaning. It continues. And that continuation does not depend on your awareness of it. This can feel disorienting at first, but over time, it becomes stabilizing. You are no longer responsible for holding everything together conceptually. You are not tasked with understanding the whole to justify your part. Your part exists regardless. As the journey approaches its later stages, the language will become even simpler. There is less need to explain and more space to just let the ideas settle, like dust slowly falling out of the air. The universe remains enormous. You remain here. Those two facts no longer compete. They coexist. And in that coexistence, something like peace begins to appear, not because the universe is kind, but because you no longer ask it to be. You are allowed to rest inside what is. For now, that is enough. Peace, when it arrives, does not announce itself. It comes quietly, slipping in between thoughts, filling the spaces where urgency used to live. You do not suddenly understand the universe. You simply stop feeling chased by it. The vastness remains exactly as it was. What changes is the pressure to respond. Earlier, the size of the universe felt like a challenge, something to measure yourself against, something that demanded a reaction. Now, it feels more like weather, always present, sometimes dramatic, often unnoticed, never personal. The universe is not asking anything of you, and that absence of demand is important. Much of human anxiety comes from imagined expectations, standards we believe must be met, meanings we believe must be justified. When those expectations are projected onto the universe, the weight becomes unbearable. How could anything small ever be enough for something infinite? The answer, quietly revealed, is that nothing was ever being asked. The universe does not require justification. Neither do you. This realization does not erase responsibility or care. It simply localizes them. Responsibility exists where actions can have effects. Care exists where minds can feel outcomes. Beyond those regions, concepts like obligation and meaning dissolve into irrelevance. The universe is too large for guilt, too large for praise, too large for judgment. These are not flaws, they are boundaries. Within those boundaries, something delicate happens. Finite systems like you are free to define their own values without cosmic interference. You are not graded on a universal scale. You are not competing with stars or galaxies or time itself. You are participating in a local process. That process has texture. It has rhythm. It has moments of clarity and moments of confusion. It has beginnings that feel accidental and endings that feel too soon. It is shaped by limits, and those limits give it form. In a strange way, the universe's vastness makes room for intimacy, because nothing else is close enough to interfere. The distances are so great that what happens here remains here. Conversations do not echo across galaxies. Decisions do not ripple through cosmic filaments. The universe leaves you alone with your consequences and your connections. That isolation can feel lonely if you expect companionship from the cosmos. But if you do not, it feels protective. It means that meaning, once created, does not need approval from beyond. It does not need to be witnessed by infinity to be valid. It only needs to be felt where it occurs. The universe's size ensures that meaning is not centralized. There is no headquarters of significance. There are only moments. And moments, by their nature, cannot be stockpiled or scaled up. They happen or they don't. They are experienced or they are missed. Right now, this moment is happening. Nothing else in the universe is required for that to be true. As this understanding deepens, curiosity softens further, questions remain, but they lose their sharp edges. You can wonder without urgency. You can think about galaxies without feeling erased by them. You can acknowledge infinity without demanding that it include you. The universe becomes something you can look at again without flinching. The stars return to being lights in the sky, not metaphors for insignificance, not reminders of futility, but quiet markers of distance and time. They are far away. They are old. They are doing what they do. So are you. This parallel is not forced. It is simply accurate. You burn energy. You radiate warmth. You change slowly. You will eventually exhaust your fuel. None of this is a failure. It is how processes behave in a universe governed by physics rather than intention. The universe does not mourn stars when they die. It does not celebrate when new ones form. And yet, stars continue to matter to planets that orbit them, to life that depends on them, to minds that look up and feel something stir. Meaning does not need cosmic participation to exist. It needs presence. The journey toward understanding the universe's size has not ended in answers. It has ended in orientation. You know where you stand, not geographically, not cosmically, but existentially. You are not at the center. You are not at the edge. You are somewhere in between, in a region where awareness briefly happens. That is not a compromise. It is the only place awareness can exist. As we move closer to the end, there will be less to say and more silence to leave intact. The universe is large enough to hold silence without discomfort. You can let thoughts slow. You can let scale recede. You do not need to keep traveling outward. For now, it is enough to stay. The universe will not go anywhere, and neither do you need to. Staying does not mean stopping. It means letting motion become gentle. The universe continues its vast unfolding whether you track it or not. Expansion carries distant galaxies farther away. Time thins the light from ancient stars. Entropy slowly smooths everything it touches. None of this pauses because you have chosen to rest. And yet, rest fits into this motion without resistance. The universe is not in a hurry. It never has been. Even its most violent events, supernovae, black hole mergers, the birth of stars, are brief only in comparison to cosmic time. From the universe's perspective, everything happens slowly enough. You are allowed to move slowly too. There is a misconception that understanding the universe requires constant effort, constant engagement with the largest ideas available. But understanding, at some point, becomes less about acquiring new information and more about integrating what you already know. Integration is quiet work. It does not demand attention in the same way discovery does. It happens in the background, reshaping perspective gradually, without urgency or drama. You already know the universe is vast. You already know it will outlast you. You already know it does not revolve around human concerns. None of these facts need to be repeated to have power. They do their work simply by being remembered now and then, like a distant horizon that gives direction without needing to be approached. What changes over time is how these facts feel. They lose their sharpness. They become like gravity, always present, rarely noticed, shaping everything gently in this state. The universe's size no longer competes with your inner life. Thoughts and feelings regain their natural scale. They are not inflated by cosmic comparison. They are allowed to be exactly as large as they are. A worry does not become meaningless because galaxies exist. A joy does not become trivial because time is vast. Those comparisons were never fair. The universe's scale does not speak the same language as experience. Trying to translate between them only creates confusion. Once you stop translating, each can exist on its own terms. This is where peace becomes stable rather than fragile. It does not rely on denial of scale or avoidance of difficult ideas. It rests on acceptance of mismatch. The universe is one kind of thing. You are another. The relationship does not need to be symmetrical. You are not here to mirror the universe. You are here to be a small part of what it allows. There is also a quiet humility that grows here, not the humility of self-erasure, but the humility of realism. You do not overestimate your reach. You do not underestimate your presence. You simply recognize where influence ends and where observation begins. Most of the universe will never be affected by anything you do. Some of the universe very close, very local, will be shaped profoundly by your choices. That distinction matters. It keeps responsibility from becoming overwhelming and prevents insignificance from becoming paralyzing. You are responsible where responsibility makes sense. You are free where it does not. This balance is rare. It is one of the subtle benefits of truly understanding scale. As your thoughts slow, the language of the universe becomes less analytical and more atmospheric. You stop dissecting it into concepts and start sensing it as a background condition, like a vast, quiet presence that does not intrude. The night sky returns to being simply dark and wide. The idea of infinity loses its edge. Distance becomes something you respect rather than fear. There is nothing more you need to extract from the universe right now. It has already given you the context you needed. The rest is living. As we move closer to the end of this long reflection, the journey does not conclude with a revelation. It concludes with something gentler, unsettling. The universe remains larger than you could ever imagine. You remain here, finite and aware. Those two truths no longer collide. They rest beside each other, quietly. And in that quiet, you can stay a while longer. In this quiet, the universe stops being something you think about. It becomes something you sense, not as an object, not as a problem, but as a background presence, vast, steady, and uninterested in rushing you. The earlier need to frame it, to interpret it, to decide what it means, fades almost completely. Meaning, at this point, feels unnecessary, not because it has vanished, but because it is no longer demanded. The universe does not lean toward conclusions. It does not hurry toward insight. It unfolds at its own pace, allowing understanding to emerge locally and temporarily, without insisting that it be permanent or complete. You begin to notice how often human discomfort comes not from uncertainty itself, but from the insistence that uncertainty must be resolved. The universe's size makes resolution impossible at the largest scales, and in doing so, it quietly teaches acceptance. Some things are meant to remain open, not unanswered, but unclosed. The universe is one of them. This realization does not flatten curiosity, it refines it. Curiosity becomes less about reaching the end of a chain of explanations and more about staying present with what can be known here, now. Questions are allowed to exist without demanding that they terminate. This is a mature kind of wonder. It does not burn brightly, it glows. In a universe this large, most of what exists will never be observed. Most events will never be witnessed. Most stories will never be told. This is not tragic. It is simply the consequence of abundance. Abundance creates invisibility, and invisibility does not imply insignificance. A flower blooming unseen in a distant forest is not less real because no one watches it. A star forming in a galaxy beyond our horizon is not diminished by our ignorance of it. Reality does not require witnesses to proceed. And yet, when witnessing does happen, when awareness is present, it adds something unique, not to the universe as a whole, but to the region where it occurs. Awareness does not scale up, it concentrates. That concentration is what gives this moment its texture. Right now, you are not facing the entire universe. You are facing this moment. The universe's vastness allows this moment to be small without being erased. It allows focus without collapse. It allows rest without consequence. This is one of the least obvious gifts of scale. Because everything is so far apart, nothing demands immediate response from everything else. Causes and effects remain mostly local. The universe does not overwhelm itself with simultaneity. You are not required to respond to everything. You cannot. And the universe does not expect you to. Once this sinks in, attention becomes easier to place. It no longer darts outward reflexively, searching for context large enough to justify existence. It settles inward, where experience is actually happening. The mind grows quieter, thoughts slow. The need to grasp dissolves. This does not mean the universe becomes less interesting. It becomes less intrusive. You can return to thinking about galaxies, expansion, and time whenever you wish, but you no longer feel pulled into them by anxiety or awe alone. They are there when you want them. And when you don't, they remain where they are, far away, moving slowly, unconcerned. This relationship is sustainable. It allows curiosity without exhaustion. It allows wonder without fear. It allows knowledge without overwhelm. The universe remains far worse than you once thought in size. The truth has not softened. If anything, it has become clearer. The distances are still immense. The horizons still unforgiving. The implications still unsettling if pressed too hard. But you are no longer pressing. You have learned how to hold the idea lightly. As we move toward the final stretch of this long journey, the universe does not need further description. It has already revealed enough of itself to reframe how you stand within it. What remains is not explanation, but atmosphere, quiet, stillness, the sense of being located somewhere very small inside, something unimaginably large, and finding that this is not a problem that needs to be solved. It is simply the way things are. And for now, that is enough to let the mind drift a little further into rest. The mind, when given enough space, naturally drifts towards stillness. Not the forced stillness of discipline or effort, but the gentle kind that arrives when there is nothing left to defend against. The universe is still vast, still unknowable, still indifferent in all the ways that once felt sharp. But those qualities no longer provoke resistance. They simply exist. In this state, the universe stops feeling like an idea and starts feeling like an environment, something you move through without needing to name every feature. You do not measure the sky every time you look up. You do not calculate the depth of the ocean before floating in it. You trust that it is large. That is enough. The awareness of scale settles into the background, where it belongs. Not forgotten, not dismissed, integrated. Like knowing that time passes even when you are not counting seconds. Like knowing that the earth moves even when you feel still. These truths do not demand attention. They quietly shape everything. The universe's size does the same. It shapes the silence between stars. It shapes the slowness of cosmic change. It shapes the fact that this moment, here, feels contained rather than overwhelming. Containment is underrated. In a universe that could have been crowded, compressed, and chaotic, containment is what allows calm to exist at all. The vast distances ensure that most events remain isolated. The long timescales ensure that change is gradual. The emptiness ensures that nothing presses too closely. This is why the night sky can feel peaceful instead of threatening. Despite everything you now know, it still looks the same. Still dark, still scattered with light, still quiet. Knowledge has not ruined the view. It has deepened it, added layers you do not need to consciously access to feel their presence. You can look up and simply see. You do not need to think about expansion, inflation, horizons, or infinity. They are there whether or not you summon them. They do not require your vigilance. This realization is deeply restful. It means that understanding the universe does not obligate you to constantly carry it in your thoughts. You are allowed to step away from the largest ideas and return to them later, unchanged. The universe will still be there. It always will be. This is one of the quiet comforts of scale. Nothing depends on your attention. The stars do not dim if you stop watching. Galaxies do not lose their structure if you forget their names. Time does not speed up if you stop measuring it. You are free to let go. In this letting go, the mind finds a rhythm closer to the universe's own. Slow, patient, unhurried. Thoughts become fewer. The ones that remain feel less urgent. There is no pressure to arrive anywhere. The journey outward is complete. The journey inward no longer feels like movement. It feels like settling. You are not shrinking yourself to fit the universe. You are allowing yourself to be the size you already are, a finite, bounded here. And that finiteness no longer feels like a flaw. It feels like a design constraint that allows experience to have edges, beginnings, middles, and ends. Without edges, nothing could rest. As the end of this long reflection approaches, there is no final insight waiting to be delivered. No grand conclusion that ties everything into a neat summary. The universe does not offer those. Instead, it offers continuity. It keeps going. And you, for now, are part of that going. The size of the universe remains far worse than you once imagined. But your need to react to that fact has softened into something quieter. Acceptance, stillness, rest. And in that rest, the vastness no longer looms. It simply surrounds. You can stay here a little longer. Surrounded does not mean enclosed. There is no wall at the edge of this moment. No boundary pressing in. Just a sense of being held inside something that does not need to define itself to you in order to exist. The universe does not frame this moment. It simply allows it. At this stage, even the word universe begins to feel distant. It is a label, a convenience, a way of pointing towards something too large to directly engage with. But what you are actually experiencing is not the universe. You are experiencing quiet. Stillness does not come from absence. It comes from balance, from the absence of pressure to respond, to solve, to become something else. The universe, in all its size, exerts no pressure of that kind. It does not lean toward you. It does not lean away. It simply is, and in that neutrality, your own presence stops feeling conditional. You do not need to earn your place here by understanding more, reaching farther, or thinking bigger. The universe does not reward comprehension with belonging. Belonging is already implied by existence itself. You are not visiting reality. You are part of it. This is easy to forget when scale dominates the conversation, when numbers climb and distances stretch. The mind instinctively searches for footing, some place to stand that feels stable. But stability does not come from matching scale. It comes from letting scale pass overhead without resistance. The universe is large enough that it does not notice your stillness. That is not a flaw. It is permission. You are allowed to stop reaching outward. You are allowed to let curiosity sleep for a while. The stars will not mind. The galaxies will not change their paths. Expansion will not falter because you closed your eyes. Nothing essential is lost when you rest. This is another quiet truth, hidden inside cosmic scale. Nothing depends on your vigilance. There is no cosmic watch that must be maintained. No system that collapses if you step away. The universe is self-consistent. It does not need supervision. So attention can return fully to what is near. The softness of darkness, the slow rhythm of breath, the gentle sense of time passing without being counted. These experiences do not compete with the universe's size. They coexist with it effortlessly. The universe is not diminished because you focus locally. It is not offended by your narrowness. Narrowness is what allows depth. A thought to be felt must be contained. A moment to be lived must be bounded. The universe's vastness ensures that these boundaries can exist without collapsing under interference. It gives you enough isolation to feel uninterrupted, enough distance to remain intact. This is why the present moment feels surprisingly complete, even after everything you have considered, despite infinity, despite endless expansion, despite horizons that will never be crossed. Completeness does not require totality. It requires coherence. Right now, things cohere. That is enough. The earlier fear that the universe's size makes everything meaningless no longer arises. Meaning is not missing. It has simply returned to its proper scale. It lives where experience lives, where memory forms, where awareness touches something and recognizes it as now. The universe does not interfere with that recognition. It steps back. It gives space. As this quiet deepens, even language begins to feel optional. Words soften. Concepts blur at the edges. The need to explain dissolves into the comfort of simply being present without commentary. You are not thinking about the universe anymore. You are resting inside the conditions it provides. This is not the end of thought. It is the pause between thoughts. And pauses, like vast distances, are what allow structure to remain intact. The universe understands pauses. It is made of them. So you can pause too. Nothing is waiting on the other side. Nothing urgent needs to happen next. For now, stillness fits. And the universe, vast and indifferent, allows it without comment. The pause stretches, and nothing breaks. This is the part that once would have felt unsettling. The absence of motion, the lack of direction, the feeling that nothing is advancing toward a conclusion. But now, the stillness holds without tension. It does not ask to be filled. The universe is very good at this. Most of its time is spent in states like this, long intervals where nothing dramatic happens, where structures persist quietly, where change unfolds so slowly it is almost imperceptible. The dramatic moments we tend to focus on explosions, collisions, births, are brief interruptions. In a much longer story of endurance, silence is the default. And in that silence, stability becomes possible. You begin to notice that rest is not the opposite of motion. It is part of the same process. Stars rest between flares. Galaxies drift without urgency. Space expands without effort. Even change, at cosmic scales, is relaxed. Nothing strains. This understanding settles into the body as well. Muscles loosen, thoughts lengthen. The need to arrive somewhere fades, replaced by a sense that arrival was never required. You are already located, anchored to a place and a moment that do not need justification. Here, now. These are not coordinates on a cosmic map. They are experiential anchors. They hold without demanding explanation. The universe does not resist this kind of grounding. It does not prefer that you remain overwhelmed or alert or vigilant. Those states are not useful at its scale. They are local responses to local conditions. And right now, the local condition is calm. There is something quietly profound about realizing that the universe's size does not intrude on this calm. Despite being unimaginably vast, it does not leak into the present moment in a way that overwhelms it. Infinity stays where it belongs, far away, abstract, non-invasive. This is not an accident. It is a feature of separation of scales. Large things do not dominate small things unless forces connect them directly. The universe's grand motions are too diffuse to disturb this pocket of experience. Expansion does not ripple through your thoughts. Cosmic time does not rush your breath. The present moment is insulated by scale, and so it feels safe. Not safe forever. Not safe absolutely, but safe enough to rest inside for a while without bracing. This is often misunderstood as denial, an attempt to ignore the universe's harsh realities. But it is not denial. It is discernment. You are not pretending the universe is small or gentle. You are recognizing that its harshness operates at scales far removed from this one. You do not need to bring the entire cosmos into every moment. The universe does not do that to itself. It allows different regions to exist at different tempos, with different intensities, without forcing them into synchrony. This lack of synchronization is what prevents constant disruption. It is what allows islands of quiet to persist inside an otherwise dynamic whole. You are in one of those islands now. Nothing needs to be solved here. Nothing needs to be optimized. Nothing needs to be measured. The universe will continue expanding in the background, as it always has. Stars will continue their slow transformations. Distant regions will continue slipping beyond one another's horizons. All of that can happen without your participation. And that is not abandonment. It is trust. Trust that the universe does not need your attention to function. And trust that you do not need to monitor it to belong. Belonging does not require vigilance. It requires presence. Right now, presence is easy. The vastness that once felt threatening has receded into a soft, distant awareness like a low horizon line beneath a wide sky. You know it is there. You do not need to stare at it. The pause continues. And nothing is lost by staying within it a little longer. Time passes, but it does so gently now. Not in the urgent way it once did, where each second felt like something slipping away, but in a broader, softer sense, more like drifting than moving. The universe has always known how to drift. Most of its history unfolds this way, without milestones, without announcements. Drifting is not wasted time. It is how systems conserve themselves. The idea that every moment must be productive, meaningful, or advancing towards something is a very local idea. It belongs to short-lived creatures in narrow circumstances. The universe does not operate under that rule. It spends vast stretches simply continuing, and in those stretches, nothing is wrong. When you allow yourself to mirror this rhythm, even briefly, something settles. The pressure to do something with the knowledge you've gained dissolves. You do not need to act on the size of the universe. You do not need to respond to it, correct it, or integrate it into a plan. You have already integrated it. It has changed how you feel without demanding that you change what you do. This is often how the deepest understandings work. They do not issue instructions. They adjust orientation. They quietly realign expectations so that the world feels slightly different afterward, even though nothing visible has changed. The universe is still expanding. You are still here. But the relationship between those facts has softened into something almost neutral. There is no longer a sense that one must overpower the other. In this state, even thoughts about the future lose their sharp edges. The distant future of the universe, dark, cold, empty, no longer feels like a threat. It feels abstract, remote, belonging to timescales so far removed that they cannot intrude on this moment. The future becomes what it always was, unknowable, but not urgent. You do not need to solve it now. You never did. The universe does not rush toward its ending, whatever that may be. It approaches it slowly, asymptotically, with patience that borders on stillness. Even endings, at cosmic scales, are gradual. Nothing snaps shut. Nothing abruptly concludes. This slow approach to change is another reason rest feels natural here. There is no countdown ticking towards significance, no final moment that everything is building toward. The universe is not a story racing toward a climax. It is a process unfolding, and processes do not mind pauses. They include them. You may notice that your attention no longer jumps outward as often. The impulse to imagine distant galaxies, infinite space, or unreachable horizons still exists, but it no longer pulls you away from the present. Those images can arise and fade without disturbing the calm. They are just thoughts now, not alarms, not challenges. Just quiet reminders of context. The universe is vast, and you are finite. Both statements coexist without tension. This coexistence is not fragile. It does not require constant reinforcement. Once understood, it sustains itself. Like balance on a bicycle, it feels precarious only until it is found. After that, it holds with surprisingly little effort. The pause deepens. The sense of being carried not by intention, not by design, but by circumstance becomes clearer. Gravity holds. Time flows. Space remains open. None of this asks for agreement or acknowledgement. It simply happens, and you are happening within it. There is no need to move yet, no need to reach the end. The universe is comfortable with unfinished moments. You can be too. Nothing insists that this moment becomes something else that may be the most unfamiliar idea of all. So much of life is organized around transition, what comes next, what should follow, how one state leads into another. The universe, at human scales, often seems to reward momentum. But at its deepest levels, momentum is optional. Vast regions of reality exist without clear progression, without narrative direction. They persist. Persistence does not require urgency. Stars persist for billions of years without hurrying toward their end. Galaxies persist long after their most active periods have passed. Space itself persists without any destination in mind. Expansion is not a race toward something better. It is simply what space does when left to itself. This reframes waiting. Waiting is usually framed as a lack, as time before something meaningful begins. But in a universe built on persistence, waiting is a state of being, not a deficiency. It is not time wasted. It is time existing without agenda. Right now feels like that. There is no sense of delay, no feeling that something important is being postponed. The moment does not lean forward or backward. It rests where it is, self-contained, complete in a way that does not depend on outcome. The universe is full of moments like this. They make up most of its existence. The dramatic events, the ones that populate documentaries and headlines, are brief highlights against a backdrop of long continuity. We notice them because they are rare, not because they define the universe's character. The universe's character is patience. This patience is difficult to learn when life feels short. When days feel compressed and years seem to accelerate, patience can feel like a luxury, but cosmic perspective quietly restores it. It reminds you that urgency is local, not fundamental. You are allowed to move at the pace of your moment. The universe does not mind. There is also a subtle reassurance in realizing that nothing essential depends on resolution. The universe is not incomplete because it lacks a final explanation. It is not flawed because it does not converge toward a single meaning. Completion is not a requirement of reality. It is a preference of storytelling. The universe does not tell stories. It allows them to arise. Stories appear where memory and attention overlap. They persist as long as someone can remember what came before and imagine what might come after. When that overlap fades, the story dissolves, not erased, just finished locally. The universe does not archive stories. It does not need to. They have already happened. This is another reason the present moment feels stable. It does not carry the burden of being remembered forever. It does not need to justify itself to the future. It only needs to exist now, briefly, honestly, without performance. The universe's size removes the audience, and without an audience, performance becomes unnecessary. You can exist without explanation. You can rest without reason. You can let awareness soften without fearing that something important will be missed. If something truly required your attention, it would be near. This is not avoidance. It is alignment with scale. Distant things, galaxies, horizons, infinities are not asking for response. Near things, breath, stillness, warmth, the sense of being present are already happening without effort. Attention follows relevance, and relevance, in a universe this large, is almost always local. The universe is not offended by your focus narrowing. It does not interpret it as ignorance or neglect. Narrow focus is what allows depth to form. Without it, everything would blur into an undifferentiated whole, too vast to feel. Feeling requires boundaries. The universe provides those boundaries by being enormous. That paradox is no longer troubling. It feels natural. The pause continues, and with it, a gentle sense that nothing needs to be added. Not another idea. Not another explanation. Not another attempt to frame the universe in a way that feels manageable. It does not need to be manageable. It only needs to be what it is. And you only need to be what you are. Finite, aware, here. The universe has already accommodated that. It always has. As the journey nears its final stretch, the language will thin even further. Words will become lighter, less insistent. The universe does not require articulation at this stage. It allows silence. And silence, in a universe built mostly of emptiness, is not absence. It is the dominant state. You are simply joining it for a while. Nothing is lost in doing so. Nothing is delayed. Nothing is waiting impatiently on the other side. There is only this moment, resting quietly inside something far larger than it needs to be. And that is not frightening anymore. It is calm. Calm, once it arrives, does not need reinforcement. It does not ask to be defended or explained. It does not need to be deepened or justified. It simply remains, as long as nothing disturbs it, and right now, nothing does. The universe is still unimaginably large. That fact rests quietly in the background, no longer demanding interpretation. It has become like a distant ocean you are no longer trying to cross. You know it is there. You respect its size. You do not feel the need to enter it. This is not withdrawal. It is proportion. There is a subtle difference between disengaging and no longer being compelled. Earlier, the universe pulled attention outward with force, numbers, distances, infinities, pressing against intuition. Now, it sits at a distance where it belongs. It frames the moment without intruding into it. The mind adjusts. Thoughts no longer spiral toward scale automatically. When they arise, they pass through more gently, like clouds drifting across a wide sky. They do not demand pursuit. They do not trigger alarm. They simply appear. This is often where people expect something final to arrive, a conclusion, a summary, a statement that resolves everything. But resolution is a habit of stories, not of reality. The universe does not gather itself into a final sentence. It continues. And continuation does not need to be explained to be valid. You may notice that even curiosity has softened into something less pointed. It is still there, but it no longer insists on being satisfied immediately. Questions can exist without answers. Ideas can remain open without tension. This is not intellectual surrender. It is intellectual rest. The universe is large enough that not knowing everything is no longer a problem. It is an expected condition. Just as no one expects to see the entire ocean at once, no one needs to grasp the universe as a whole to live meaningfully inside it. Partial understanding is not a failure. It is the default state of all observers within vast systems. The universe does not penalize this. It accommodates it. There is also a growing sense that the universe's size is no longer something that defines you. By contrast, you are not small compared to the universe. That framing has quietly dissolved. You are simply finite. And finiteness is not a comparison, it is a category. The universe is not large at you, it is large around you. And aroundness, once accepted, feels neutral rather than oppressive. In this state, the present moment becomes clearer, not brighter or more intense, but more stable. It does not flicker under scrutiny. It holds steady without requiring effort. This steadiness is rare in a world that often feels noisy and demanding, but it has always been available, hidden beneath urgency and expectation. Cosmic scale did not create this steadiness. It revealed it by removing false pressures. When you stop expecting the universe to explain itself to you, you stop expecting yourself to explain yourself to the universe. That exchange was never required. The universe is not listening, and that, paradoxically, makes listening easier here. Listening to breath, to silence, to the subtle sense of time passing without insistence. These are not trivial experiences. They are foundational. They are what awareness does when it is not being pulled outward by fear or awe. You may notice that the earlier idea, the true size of the universe is far worse than you think, no longer feels dramatic. The word worse has lost its edge. Not because the size has diminished, but because the emotional frame has changed. Worse than what? Worse than expectation, worse than intuition, but not worse than living inside it. The universe is worse for simplicity, worse for stories that demand neat endings, worse for egos that want centrality, but it is not worse for being. Being fits inside it just fine. This is an important distinction, even if it is no longer an urgent one. The universe's size does not threaten existence. It threatens assumptions about importance, permanence, and final meaning. Once those assumptions loosen, the threat dissolves. What remains is a vast environment that neither welcomes nor rejects. It allows. Allowance is enough. There is no sense now of needing to take anything away from this journey. No lesson to memorize. No insight to protect. Everything that mattered has already settled into orientation rather than instruction. You know how to stand, not physically, existentially. You know that the universe is enormous and indifferent, and that this does not invalidate the smallness and care that happen locally. You know that meaning does not scale, and that this is not a loss. You know that rest is compatible with understanding. These are not conclusions, they are conditions, and they will remain available even after words stop. As we approach the final stretch, there is nothing to prepare for. No emotional turn, no sudden insight, just a gentle tapering, like the end of a long exhale. The universe does not end stories, it lets them fade. And fading is not erasure, it is completion without ceremony. For now, the moment holds. Nothing presses forward, nothing pulls back. Everything is exactly where it needs to be, and you are here, inside it, without needing to go anywhere else, just a little longer. The universe will wait, it always does. The long exhale finally reaches its end, not abruptly, not with a full stop, but the way night arrives, gradually, gently, without asking permission. The universe is still there, vast, beyond comprehension, still expanding, still slipping away from itself in directions you will never see. None of that has changed. What has changed is the way it sits in your mind. It no longer feels like something you must hold. It feels like something you can let be. There is nothing left to resolve. No final truth waiting just beyond the next thought. No hidden meaning that will suddenly make the universe feel smaller or more reasonable. The universe does not become kinder at the end of reflection. It becomes quieter and quiet. In a reality this large is not emptiness, it is permission. Permission to stop reaching outward. Permission to stop measuring. Permission to stop comparing yourself to something that was never meant to be a mirror. The universe does not need you to understand it in order to continue, and you do not need to understand it in order to rest. Right now, everything that matters is close. The distant galaxies can drift without your attention. The far horizons can close without your concern. The expansion can stretch space until light itself gives up trying to cross it. None of that intrudes here. Here, the scale is smaller, manageable, human. Here, there is breath and stillness, the simple fact of being present at all. In a universe that forgets almost everything, this moment is briefly remembered by you. That is enough. It has always been enough. There is no cosmic witness waiting to judge how well you understood the size of reality. No requirement to stay awake, alert, or profound. Awareness does not earn extra credit for endurance. Even stars are allowed to burn out, so you can let the thought slow now. You can let the universe fade back into the background where it belongs. Not denied, not dismissed, just distant. Vast things are better appreciated from afar. The night sky does not demand analysis. It offers darkness and light, if that is all. If your eyes are heavy, let them close. If your thoughts are drifting, let them drift. If the mind feels empty, let it be empty. The universe is mostly empty too, and it works just fine. Nothing important will be missed by resting. Nothing essential depends on staying awake. The cosmos will continue exactly as it always has. Slow, silent, patient. You don't need to keep watch. So, as this long journey comes to a gentle pause, allow yourself to do what the universe does best between its rare, dramatic moments. Be still. Good night. Sleep well. Let the vastness stay where it belongs, far away, quiet and harmless, while you rest. Here, in this small and perfectly sufficient corner of it,